When we first started Toad Hop, we were a morning show. We started around 9 in the morning. I think it was like 8 to 9 or 9 to 10. I can't remember. One of the two. But anyway, it was morning show. So we were just waking up, drinking our coffees. And this was our third show at the Toad Hop Network. And it was a fun one because we had a Schmoes Know regular, a buddy of ours, Jeremy Jahns, YouTube movie reviewing, one of the movie reviewers on YouTube. You know him, you love him. He called in. He wasn't live like he was in a couple of other ones, but he called in and we talked about Batman movies because The Dark Knight Rises was coming out. So we wanted to get in the spirit of things, so we started talking about everything Batman, from the Michael Keaton ones, the Tim Burton ones, whatever, to the Joel Schumacher ones, and Batman Begins. We just went over everything we loved about the Batman movies. It was a really great discussion, a lot of fun, and if you're a Batman fan, I can't imagine why you wouldn't love listening to episode 45 of Phase 3 of the Schmoes Know podcast. And always remember you can watch the show now as it is, Phase 5, schmoesknow.com, 6 to 8 p.m. PST. Just go to schmoesknow.com. You can watch it live. It's also up on our main channel the day after, and you can also find it on iTunes. So, yeah, thank you very much, and enjoy this episode of Phase 3. It's the Batman Show. Thanks, guys.
Live from Universal Studios Hollywood in beautiful Los Angeles, California.
ToadHopNetwork.com.
Radio worth watching.
Radio worth watching.
Yeah. I love that. I just love the beginning of it. I love everything about it, and I'm very excited, Mark. How you doing? I'm Kristian Harloff of Schmoes Know.
Welcome to the podcast, everyone. That is Kristian. I am Mark. We are the Schmoes. We know some things, limited things.
Yeah, but today we know a lot of stuff.
Well, we know a lot of stuff about movies. It's the Schmoes Know Movies podcast. And today I'm very excited. I don't know if you heard the song that was playing, Kristian.
Of course I heard the song.
Before we got brought into the show.
Amazing.
The original Batman theme, the long version, the extended version. They had like the 30-second one to get the kids in. That was the one that you cruise around with chicks. Listen to it on the radio.
Maybe?
Yeah. Get your shark spray ready, kids. It is a full hour of Batman yap.
Yeah, and we have a lot of cool stuff to be going over the Batman stuff. We're going to be talking about all the Batman movies from Burton and Schumacher and Nolan himself.
Excuse you, Adam West.
Yeah, well, we might bring up that one. I don't know.
We have to talk about the original.
Fine. But besides all of the cool Batman stuff, we're joined by a very, very special guest today, Mark.
That's right. We're going to bring in Jeremy Jahns, movie reviewer extraordinaire.
Yeah, our partner in crime, if you will.
YouTube celebrity.
For our You Reviewers Awards, our buddy. We've done tons of collaborations with him. He's our good pal. Jeremy Jahns, you there, pal?
Here is Jeremy. How are you, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great.
There he is. So, Jeremy,
we get to talk about some Batman.
Oh, dude, how excited are you to be able to talk about all the Batman movies?
Yeah, so like all four of them. I've been brushing up, man. I've been listening to my Danny Elfman soundtrack, so I'm ready to go.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. We'll be talking Danny Elfman versus Hans Zimmer.
That's the biggest debate in my mind is the music, because obviously I think you got to give it to Nolan now over the Burton movies as far as quality, but the music that's going to be
a tough one. I think we get into that right before we get into the Nolan ones in the second half. So this is how the show's going to work.
I'm just happy we all woke up this early. To be honest, we're just here. There's not a lot of things that I'll get up at 9 in the morning for. Batman Yap is one of them.
You know what I love? You mentioned Hans Zimmer and Danny Elfman. Nothing about the guy who did the Schumacher scores.
Who did it? George Clooney?
Besides Bono and U2.
Yeah, no one knows who did that thing. I mean, it's ridiculous. Whoever did it gave a fake name. It's like, Frank Biffles.
Like the Blackman book?
Yeah, exactly. So this is how the show's going to work today. We're going to do the first half is going to be all Burton and Schumacher, and then we're going to take some calls from the fans so you guys can to talk about those specific movies, and then we'll take a break, then we'll come back, and then, yes, we'll talk about all Nolan movies, and we'll have a nice little segment on The Dark Knight, because last week I think something happened where our Dark Knight things got a little muffled, but we'll go straight into the...
It was top secret. Commissioner Gordon wasn't ready for us to release our Batman thoughts yet.
No, but he's ready now. So let's just dive into this thing, shall we, chaps?
Well, first of all, I think we talk about just the 1960s version that you saw when you were a little kid for 2 seconds, because one of the coolest things about that was the shark spray. Everybody remembers that scene. It was the Batman TV show. Then they made a movie about it. And it was kind of campy, starring Adam West as Batman. And on his belt at all times, he carried with him shark spray, and it actually came in handy. Jeremy, have you ever seen that version?
I'm going to level with you. I'm going to be a complete asshole. I haven't. I remember something about shark spray when Batman Forever came out, and then they were showing all the old Batman TV shows, all the episodes and the little campy movies on TV, on MTV or whatever. And I remember something about sharks, but now I'm piecing together why they showed the 60s campy one alongside the Schumacher Batman that came out.
I love how you said, I'm an asshole, I didn't see it. You're lucky that didn't sink the entire Batman franchise, so you're not an asshole for not seeing it. Trust me.
Very campy.
Right? You know people are going to call and be like, fuck that guy, can I say the F word on here?
Yeah, you can. We just did,
Please
so you can
do.
anyway. Yeah.
Please do.
Right.
But yeah, so Harloff's fuming right now. So we're done with the 60s. Adam West, he's great in The Family Guy. But then the whole franchise got reinvigorated in 1989 when Tim Burton made Batman.
Right, because up until then, you only had the only superhero movie you had that was gigantic was Superman. And then you had 1 and 2, and I love those movies, but pretty much campy movies. Like if you go back and I love them. I still love them very much. But if you watch them, there's a couple dark moments in 2 for the Superman movies, but for the most part, a lot of cheese. So when Burton came out in this kind of dark tone, and and everyone was going crazy over it, and then they announced Jack Nicholson as the Joker, it just set a whole new precedent for what superhero movies were going to be.
Yeah, Jeremy, what was it like when you were in the theater the first time when you went to go see the original I guess not the 1989 Batman?
Was he 6?
It's funny because we're all going to show our age in this episode, in this podcast. But I remember going to the movie theater, because that was back when movie theaters, going to the movie was a big deal.
Right.
There weren't like 28 movies that came out in one weekend. It was like one that you went to see, and it was always full. And I remember these two kids dressed up as Batboy and Batgirl, or Batman and Batgirl, they were kids. And it was people didn't really dress up, and so that was a big deal. And the movie theater manager was like, these kids, Batman and Batgirl, and it was just awesome, and everyone gave them a round of applause. And then, I saw it because my brother saw it before me, so I hated him for it. And after I saw it, it was just like the coolest movie I had ever seen in my life, because it was just so real, you know? Like you said about the Superman movies, there is a point where you realize that Superman did in fact throw a cellophane head off of his chest, and no matter how much you love to throw down with Zod, that still happened.
Right.
The 1989 Batman was just a thing altogether. I mean, Joker gets shot in the face and then dropped into acid. And
Yeah, there's a lot of dark stuff.
I remember being excited about Michael Keaton playing Batman because I knew him from Beetlejuice. On the way to the theater, my mom had to explain to me who Jack Nicholson was because I didn't know who he was. And she's like, no, you got to see this guy. And I'm like, I don't know who this Nicholson guy, what's he ever done?
When you get a load of me.
Yeah, and then you watch the movie, and it's just and by the way, Billy D. Williams also in it. Should be mentioned as the original Two-Face. He never got to play actually Two-Face,
right,
but he does play Harvey Dent. So shout out for Billy D.
Well, that was the thing, is that movie, it did have a lot of kind of, like you said, dark tones, and there was...
It was more like it wasn't a comic book as much as it felt more like a graphic novel.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I mean, the campiest thing I think that happens in the first one is when the Batwing flies up to the moon and makes the bat symbol and then drops down. But it was still like really cool. You're like, that's awesome.
Well, wait a minute here. I gotta correct you on that one. If you go back in time and not even back in time, you go back and watch that movie right now. Mm-hmm. There's a lot.
Wait, you want us to go back in time?
Go back in time and then watch it
right now.
Do it. Get in your DeLorean.
It sounds very confusing, Doc Brown.
Well, yeah, it's like an episode of Fringe. Well, what it is that you go back and you watch some of those scenes. There's a lot of campy stuff, Jeremy. Like his buddy Bob and those assholes that he goes into the museum with, and they're dancing around.
They're dancing around to Prince. Prince did a lot of the songs for that one, but I think it's kind of I wouldn't say campy as much as a cool time capsule as when the movie came out. I don't think it detracts from the film at all because again, this is the Joker. He's a nutcase. Did he play it differently than Heath Ledger did? Yes, but it was a different tone.
I agree, but we've
argued about this before.
Yeah, but the campiness of it is the fact that his thugs, there's not one thug that Jack Nicholson has that you're ever threatened by. They're all idiots.
What are you talking about? That big dude that looks like Albobo from Double Dragon? That freaked me out.
One guy.
He didn't have the best crew around him.
Right.
Heath Ledger's Joker hired like really good bad guys. Nicholson was like, I just don't want anybody to outshine me.
Yeah, but again, I love the movie. It's a good one.
Are my number one. A guy.
Yeah. If you look at what was happening in the art museum, I mean, they're violating modern art. I remember my mom had a friend. She was a big art fanatic. And
I love this.
It came out on VHS, so she saw it for the first time. And I remember she flipped the motherfuck out on that scene. Like, she was just like, I can't believe they're doing this. Like, they really actually violated George Washington's face with spray paint and painted Julius Caesar's head with Joker paint or whatever. And it sparked that kind of a reaction.
That's amazing.
Among a melodramatic psycho. So I got to say, I can see where you're going with the thugs, but I mean, name a movie where 98% of the thugs aren't cheesy people.
But the movie as a whole, it comes out and it completely put Batman back on the map. Now all of a sudden, everybody, remember they had those Converse shoes with the little Batman logos on them. Everybody was now Batman was back, and this whole kind of, you can say X-Men started the superhero movies for the new millennium.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, Batman, that was the first one. I think that's the first comic book movie that still holds up very well today.
I agree.
As far as special effects and all that other stuff.
Batman 1989 was the reason that why we still have this superhero craze now. Because it set the wave.
The marketing and all that.
Yeah, my biggest thing with that movie is not necessarily, like I said, I think it's a good movie. My biggest thing is I always wanted to see a movie based on just Batman, and to me, the 1989 version is more about the Joker story than it is anything else, and that's because of Jack Nicholson as well, because when you get Jack Nicholson, especially at that time in 89, he says, I want the movie to be about me. You say, okay.
Yeah, well, you can also have more fun playing the Joker than you can Bruce Wayne because there's a difference. Because the Joker, all you have to do is just be crazy. You're almost like the comic relief at that point.
Right.
You're Tom Arnold in True Lies. You have there's an easier way to steal that movie.
Right.
But when you talk about the best Batmans of all time, I think Michael Keaton is right. I think Michael Keaton is such a good Bruce Wayne and a great Batman.
What do you think, Jeremy? Jeremy, are you a fan of Keaton?
I got like 7 thoughts that just went through my head. That whole monologue that you guys just did.
Yeah.
So first of all, the reason I loved the first Batman, the 89 Batman, the most back in the day is because the Joker was always my favorite character of all time. He always was. Before the first Batman came out, he was my favorite character of all time.
He was your favorite Batman character or your favorite Batman villain? Like, did you like him better than Batman?
He was my favorite villain of all time.
Okay.
I can say that. And to this day, I'm really hard pressed to find someone. I mean, you have Darth Vader and the really ominous figures, but in terms of one that I'm like, that's the coolest guy ever. If like a genie popped out of a lamp and was like, I'm sorry, but you have to be a villain, what would you be? I'd be like, I'd be the Joker. That just seems like it'd be the most fun.
You're not taking Mr. Freeze? Oh, you're making a mistake.
Yeah, I think Michael Keaton was I think the first one was definitely the Joker's movie, and as Heath Ledger came out with his Joker, it kind of retracted from the timelessness of that movie because it was all based on the Joker. And when you have a movie that has a quote better Joker,
right,
the first Batman kind of loses a lot of its gravity.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I believe that Michael Keaton was a great Batman because he was just very brooding and he didn't talk. and he didn't snap out some corny lines that we'll talk about later in some of the later Batman.
Right.
But in terms of Bruce Wayne, I thought he was a good Bruce Wayne, but I thought Val Kilmer played up the playboy aspect of Bruce Wayne a lot more.
Well, definitely going to get into that because that's a great point because a lot of people, especially when Joel Schumacher came out and said that he, to this day, thinks that Kilmer's the best, and we'll get into that once we hit the third movie. But I agree. The thing is, one of the reasons that Keaton was so good was because everyone knew him from like Mr. Mom and Beetlejuice, and they're like, this guy's not going to play Batman. What is going on?
Serious acting chops. It's like he was more Michael Keaton from Clean and Sober than he was from Johnny Dangerously, which was perfect. But you know what's funny is that originally Tim Burton wanted to try to get Bill Murray to play Bruce Wayne. Well, and maybe that's just a crazy, but Bill Murray has serious acting chops as well.
Right,
now he's not, you don't think of him when you think of, he's not the picture of fitness, you know.
This is why I think Tim Burton had like lightning in him. He got lucky because the thing was, we'll talk about 2 in a second here, but like he wanted to cast Nicolas Cage as Superman. The guy does not have great casting, but he always wants to be quirky and different. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to go off the grain. And it's like, just, he
10 or 15 years ago, I wouldn't have hated Nicolas Cage as Superman.
Get out of my face. Are you kidding?
I wouldn't have hated it.
Oh, that's a different podcast.
Wouldn't have hated it. All right. Well, Jeremy, thanks for joining us on the Batman podcast. Now,
it's the Nicolas Cage Superman podcast.
To break up our fight, why don't we? You want to try to take a phone call? You want to see if
it's about the Burton movie? If it's about the first Burton movie, then yes.
Okay, I can't. You want me to? We're going to take this live. We're going to take a risk here, and we're going to take our first phone call. It's Andrew. Is Andrew there?
Hello.
Hey, what's up, Andrew? What are your thoughts on the Tim Burton Batman movies?
Oh shit, I love them, except for the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. Well, by then Joel Schumacher had gone over there. So, do you like Michael Keaton as Batman?
Yeah, I think he did a really good job in the first one, and I love Nicholson.
Yeah. So,
what's that?
I said, yeah, see, he's a Nicholson fan, Joker fan.
Yeah, well, and that was the thing. Thank you very much for the call.
Andrew, yeah.
So, yeah, I think that the Nicholson, he stole that movie, and I think that's why we needed more Batman. So we got a little bit of the Batman parent stuff, but again, it set the precedent. It was such a great film, and then you said, okay, can't wait for the next one. It's going to be, once I think that was 89. So I believe the second one, Batman. What's the second called?
Batman Returns.
Was that 91 or
91 or 92? I think it was 92.
I believe it was 92. I want to say it was 92.
There was so much controversy over that one too because that was even darker than the first Batman, and you have like Penguin biting the mayor's nose and blood shooting. Now I remember parents being very upset that they took their kids to see what they thought was just going to be a fun Batman movie, and it's super dark.
The second one?
I remember I couldn't watch that movie when I was a kid. My parents were like, "We're drawing the line on this one. You can watch it when it comes out, and we'll like edit some scenes out of it." And they really did that. My dad was all like into VHS, and he knew how to like edit shit, and so he did that. I got like a watered down version of Batman Returns when I first saw it.
Well, I wish your dad would have edited the whole thing and sent it to me because I hated the second one.
Oh, you're not a Batman Returns guy?
I hate the second one. I think it's so stupid with I love Danny DeVito, but he was like such a and it's like what, and then you had Pee Wee Herman as the dad in the beginning.
What is that? Why would you complain about that? Paul Rubens is in one scene at the beginning. Why does that bother you at all? He's a buddy of Tim Burton.
Listen to me, because it ceased to be a Batman movie and it became a Tim Burton movie. And there's two different things because when you had a bit of Tim Burton, sprinkled throughout the first one, but yet it was still a Batman movie with the Joker story. The second one was purely a Tim Burton movie with that theme and the music, and it became so bizarre.
That music's great,
and it's too bizarre.
I really like Catwoman in that one too. I thought Michelle Pfeiffer was phenomenal as Catwoman.
Yeah, she was fine, but it's just everything. It was so out of place, and it was so silly, and it was so. You talk about campy shit with the beginning with the circus stuff and his clowns running around doing God knows what.
It kind of unravels. I mean, it's not a great movie, but I still enjoy watching it because again, I love Michael Keaton as Batman. So.
Some people love the second one. I despise it. I think it's very hard for me to watch.
Yeah,
I can say this. You have valid points as to where you're coming from. And it's definitely a completely different vibe from the first one. And I think before the show, Kristian and I talked, and he was like, I want to hear what you say about these movies. Because usually, Kristian and I we're not on completely different spectrums. Usually we're like, oh yeah, we're in the same ballpark about movies. But I think I like Batman Returns better than both of you do.
Yeah, I think so too. Because I'm not a huge Tim Burton fan. I mean, there's a couple of like Beetlejuice I love. The first Batman, like I said, I like, but
Frankenweenie.
But I just think, that, like I said, his style usually overtakes the movies, and it focuses more on becoming.
He's more the star of the movie.
Yeah, and to me, sometimes
he shows off in his movies for sure in the Batman movies.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the story suffers from it, and that's why I think the second. But we're going to take a second phone call, and this guy's been a returning caller. This is his third call. We're joined by Tyler, the Cali critic. What's up, buddy?
Hey, not much.
So what about you, man? What do you think about have you ever seen the original, the 89 and the 92 versions?
Unfortunately, I haven't yet.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was going to make a joke about, like, who hasn't seen him?
Dude, Jeremy, I was right there with you. I was like, of course. He's Tyler. He's a Cali critic. Of course we've done this, but he hasn't. Wow.
I
treat
love
yourself.
No, wait, that's very interesting because it's almost like the Star Wars thing. Like, because Tyler, just to, I'm assuming you're in between, like, the 17 to 22-year-old range.
Yeah.
All right. So right there,
we got John Edward on the phone. You want to talk to any great grandparents while we're here?
I'm pretty good at that, but I'm just saying. But that is very interesting to me. I'm going to guarantee you that after someone who's been exposed to the Nolan versions first, when he goes back to watch those 89 to the Burton ones, and even he's going to hate them. Or he's going to realize, okay, they're fine, but they hold nothing on what I have seen recently.
Yeah, it may feel a little more dated. Now, Tyler, have you seen the Batman Forever and Batman and Robin?
I've seen parts of Batman and Robin, specifically the Schwarzenegger bit.
Yeah, well,
I haven't seen any of the other ones.
that's all you need to see from Batman and Robin. You don't need to get too much more in depth with that one. But I highly recommend seeing Batman and then Batman Returns because you want to know what happens to those characters.
Right. So, well, Tyler, what do you? How much do you know of Michael Keaton then? Because he's kind of been out of the limelight. I mean, with the exception of like the other guys, you know. But do you know anything about him? Like, have you seen a lot of his movies?
I've seen a few of his. I like the stuff that I have seen from him. He's a pretty underrated actor.
So what do you think going into, because eventually you're going to watch the '89 version as putting on your casting hat? Can you see Michael Keaton out of the movies that you've seen? Can you see him as Batman?
I could actually.
All right. Well, here's your homework, my friend. Next time you call in,
We know you're in college, but sorry, we're going to give you some homework. I think before The Dark Knight Rises comes out, I want you to see Batman and Batman Returns and let us know what you think of it.
I'll take that on.
All right, good. So that's Tyler again. Thanks for calling in, buddy. Our weekly caller, Tyler, the Cali critic. I'm all tongue-tied today.
Ready to take a challenge.
We're ready. Okay.
Well, you're Batman. You're supposed to. You're brooding. You're dark. You're not supposed to be talking a lot.
That's not until the second half. But yeah, so I think that are we clear on the lines?
We got a couple calls, but I want to go ahead and get into. We talked about Burton a lot, and then Batman Forever comes out, and I'll tell you this quick story. I was so excited for Batman Forever. It was right in my wheelhouse for me. I was listening to the Top Gun soundtrack a lot because Val Kilmer, Iceman, was going to be Batman, and I'm like, this is going to be Highway to the Danger Zone, baby. And we went down. We got first time I ever bought advanced movie tickets for anything. We go down there, and I remember that feeling in the theater of like, what the hell is happening? Right. And walking out of the theater, and it was the first time that I kind of had to trick myself into thinking I liked something just so I wouldn't be emotionally crushed.
Well, I'm completely with you on that one too. Yeah, you go in there in that first, about the second scene. When he comes down and he's gliding down, he lands right in front of Nicole Kidman. You see all the spotlights and all the black lights and a completely different vibe. And you think maybe it'll just end after this scene. Maybe they got like a car sale going on, like one block down, and that's why all the spotlights are around. But it never goes away. Yeah, no, I know. And Mark said he was excited because Iceman was in it. I thought Batman was going to start getting stoned because I was a huge Jim Morrison fan. And, then you had, he had just played him in the Doors. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a dark Batman. Yeah. And then, well, the thing, like I said, that I will give Burton movies credit for is the Danny Elfman score. And that it was so, like, for me, I'm a score guy. Just get me, but the Schumacher version really started playing with this musical soundtrack. It was Seal. And like, oh, let's try. I mean, yes, they had Prince in the '89 one, but it wasn't as dominant as, like, to shove it in your face. Like, oh, here's a new hit song. Listen to this one. Listen to this one. It was a commercial.
Yeah,
right.
The color schemes in that movie, it was dark, but then you had these weird neon lights. You just feel like you're at like a bad high school rave. And the villains in that movie, I was also really excited for because Jim Carrey, obviously, the guy changed my life in movie theaters more than once, and so you're excited. Oh, this guy's playing the Riddler. He's going to be fantastic. And Carrey is the Riddler. Maybe I just can't admit to myself that it wasn't that good, but I still want to give him some credit.
Because Carrey in his prime.
Because it's Jim Carrey in his absolute prime. Right. But Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face, that just felt totally overcooked.
I'll say this, and I actually said this to someone just day before yesterday. We were talking about something. And we're talking about villains in movies and shows. And I said there are two kinds of people in the world. People who like the really eccentric, fun, crazy, out-of-his-mind Riddler, and people who like the really dark, ominous, just in control of the situation, mentally strong, yet really, really subtle about it, Riddler. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what they did with the Joker in the Nolan ones.
And exactly. And the Jim Carrey Riddler was a rendition of the Riddler, but it's not the one that I wanted to see. I wanted to see the really smart and methodical Riddler.
Well, you know what they were going to do is that before Carrey was cast, Robin Williams was supposed to play that part.
Yes, he was, and he walked. That's right.
Yeah, and he walked because what would have been great is to see with Schumacher it would have never happened. But what would have been great was to have Robin Williams play like a Riddler, like he was like in 1 Hour Photo.
Yeah,
that type of Riddler.
Yeah, Insomnia.
Or Insomnia, like when he really started stepping into Out of Your Mind role.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what he thought he was going to get into, and then he saw what Joel Schumacher's like. Wait, I have to show my ass. Yeah. He's like, no, I'm out.
Yeah, I get to wear spandex. Fantastic.
And then Silverstone was in the fourth one, right? She wasn't in this one.
Alicia Silverstone was Batgirl.
Right. But this is when we were introduced to Chris O'Donnell as Robin. And this is when the fit hit the shin, if you will.
Well, look, if you want to have Robin in your movie really bad, Chris O'Donnell's not a bad choice to play.
It was just the whole thing was a mess, and like it just didn't work. And I thought Kilmer, like to Jeremy, to go back on what you were saying before, Kilmer was a good. He encaptured Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, but when he had the Batman suit on, he was Bruce Wayne in a mask.
Right.
And that's just kind of the way I see it. The car, right? Chicks dig the car. Get the fuck out. Really? You really? No.
But this was also before you could actually like reinvent a franchise entirely. This wasn't like when they did the Incredible Hulk 3 years after they did the Hulk. Right. So you still kind of couldn't go over any of the territory that Burton had already covered. So you had to get these different villains, and maybe you had to feel like, oh, well, now we need Robin. We need something new to the franchise because you couldn't just piss on what Tim Burton had done. It just wasn't acceptable in the mid-'90s yet.
But then you had the back and forth between the two of them was so jokey and just not real, and you're like, oh, we're in trouble.
Agree. I feel like in Batman Forever we had two versions of the Joker, and we had the Riddler Joker and the Two-Face Joker. I mean, it's Halloween. They go up to Wayne Manor. They're both clearly grown-ass men with little masks in front of their face, like sweet, oh sweet. Alfred's like, we'll open the door. No.
Well, don't worry, we got a treat for you because coming up after the break, we're going to be talking about the Nolan versions of Batman. So hang out with us here at the Schmoes Know Movies podcast on the Toad Hop Network. We will be right back.
Love it.
Love that score. That is, of course, the 1989 Danny Elfman score for Batman. And during break, we actually played Prince from the 1989 Tim Burton's Batman. Welcome back to the Schmoes Know Movies podcast here on the Toad Hop Network. I am Mark, and that is Kristian to my left. And we're also joined by Jeremy Jahns via the telephone.
That's right. And we were talking.
Also has the Prince Batman soundtrack. He was there last weekend.
Good for you. So we're taking phone calls. If you go to Twitter at Schmoes Know and ask us a few questions on Batman, we'll try to answer those as well at the end of the show. But here's the number to call in. It's 1-888-520-4374. Call in. We're talking all things Batman.
I don't think you have to put the 1 in front of the number anymore. I think you say the number.
I don't know. I don't make phone calls anymore. I just text.
Susie at the switchboard will patch you through if you have a phone call. Let's go ahead and take a caller right now, Kristian, before we get into the Chris Nolan version.
Let's do it.
Caller, you're on with the Schmoes.
And Jeremy.
What's up?
Hey, who we got?
Chris Stuckmann.
Oh, shit. Look at this. Now,
Stuckmann up in here.
it's like the Year Reviewers Awards all over again.
It's like the Avengers, but we're talking Batman.
That's right. Okay, Chris.
We just need Catherine. That's it. And the Avengers.
Well, Chris, I don't think I know we've talked about Nolan's versions together. What's your stance on the Schumacher, the 3 and 4, if you will?
There were Schumacher movies?
It's like Rocky 5. Yeah, it's true.
No, there is no stance on them. Batman Forever was tolerable, but Batman Forever was the first one that really started to turn it into like a whimsy, wacky
circus.
Fun, circus. Like you expected people to be punched in like you feel like a side effect, like or just some crazy thing like that.
Yeah, there were one too many thwaps in Batman Forever. But also, I think Chris has a point because as a standalone movie, Batman Forever isn't atrocious, but it's a Batman movie. It's not just some random super. It's not like Kick-Ass where it's these are just new superheroes. Let's see what they're like. This is Batman. You can't make a bad Batman movie.
Right.
It's disappointing to the fans like me.
Well, what was more disappointing was when number 4 came out, Batman and Robin, and they announced that Schwarzenegger was going to be the villain, and you're like, yes, he's going to recapture the Terminator evilness. You're like, all right,
not going to happen.
And then Schumacher just totally went over the edge.
All right, everybody, chill.
Well, that's come on, chill out. It was so bad. Yeah, everything. I don't know. So it's just that movie was the one, like Spider-Man 3, that basically screamed reboot.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Did you ever hear the rumors after Batman and Robin? They were going to have Nathan Lane be the Mad Hatter and Madonna be Harley Quinn.
Holy shit.
And, this was you didn't read this online. You read them in like Entertainment Weekly magazines, and after that they were like, all right, this isn't happening. Batman's dead. So.
But what's funny about that? It's great because had that catastrophe never happened of number 4, we wouldn't have these movies that we're about to talk about now.
Yeah, now Stuckmann, I'm curious. Did you see Batman and Robin in the theater? And at the time, were you like, I guess we don't get any more good Batman movies?
No, I feel like even in 1997 or whenever it came out, I feel like even then I had the knowledge that would not be a movie that I needed to spend $10 on or whatever it was. I waited for VHS tape to see that movie.
Smart. You should have cut the tape up after you saw it.
I saw that because I was...
One quick thing.
Yeah.
So, you guys did kind of gloss over a Batman theatrical release that I think is fantastic.
I know what he's going to say. Say it, dude.
Batman Mask of the Phantasm? Is that what you're talking about?
Mask of the Phantasm. In theaters, excellent Batman movie.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know what's great about that is that the voice of the Joker is done by none other than Mark Hamill, I believe.
Well, Mark Hamill. Yeah.
Luke Skywalker for everybody listening at home.
Mark Hamill, to a lot of people, is the Joker. People love Mark Hamill as the Joker.
He was one of those guys rumored when Nolan was casting, where is it going to be, maybe they'll bring back Mark Hamill to be a Joker, or maybe Robin Williams would finally be the Joker.
Right.
But then obviously they settled on some other dude, and he did okay.
He did all right. But even because he carried over so well, they put him in the really popular games too. The Arkham City. What's it? Arkham City and
Arkham Asylum.
Right.
Yeah, great.
So good call. Well, thank you, Chris. It's always a pleasure. We look forward. We're gonna have Chris on pretty soon. I think in like 2 weeks he's gonna be a full-time guest. So look forward to talking to you then, bud.
Thanks, guys.
Good job. Go ahead.
Hey, Jeremy, we'll compliment our own guests around here. Okay, thanks, buddy.
Good job, forget it. I'm not in studio. All right, well, Jeremy. So let's go to your point of view here. When it's 1995 was like that was 95 was
95 was forever, and then 97 was
So Clooney, we don't need to talk. Clooney knows he was terrible. We don't need to talk about him. And then
to his credit, he has a sense of humor about it.
No, of course he knew he had no business being near that thing. And then you had Bat Nipples and Alicia Silverstone, trash on a stick. So then from 97 they put it on hold. Warner Brothers goes, shit, what do we do? Just let it sit. And then 2005 rolls along, and you get this masterpiece.
Yeah, so as we knew it, this is what I heard. My friend comes to me, and he goes, check this out. The director of Memento is going to direct a Batman movie.
Right.
And I was just confused. I was like, that's interesting. It can't be bad, or at least worse than what we got. I love Memento.
Right.
And I was just interested. I didn't know how that would go.
Yeah.
It's kind of like hearing that Quentin Tarantino's directing the new Star Wars. You don't think those two are ever going to meet.
But you trust it.
Yeah, and I was like, that's really cool. This could not work, or it could work so fucking well
that
I would just be beside myself. Then I saw the first couple trailers, and that ended that one trailer where the guy goes, where are you? And Batman's behind him, and he goes, here. And then it just goes dark, and I'm like, this is going to be the greatest movie.
Now, maybe I'm just a backwoods Virginia redneck, but because I was pretty fresh off the boat getting to L.A. when that movie came out, and I don't remember a whole lot of hype. It almost felt like it was under the radar to me. Maybe that's just me. I didn't even see that movie in the theater. I don't remember seeing a trailer for it. There's not a lot in my head about when Batman Begins came out. When I finally did see it, I think it is now my favorite Batman movie of all time. I think it's even better than The Dark Knight.
Well, let me start with this. Go ahead, Jeremy. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, it's kind of ironic we're talking about timeline. My first time I was ever in L.A. was actually a couple months before Batman Begins came out. And I saw the biggest fucking billboard I have ever seen in my life with Batman Begins on it in L.A.
Well, I was living in a pretty bad neighborhood, so maybe they didn't get the new movie billboards over there.
Yeah, but I agree. That thing came out, and it's like, and you talk about score, because Danny Elfman was so, like, are they going to use it again? Like, like they did with the John Williams in the new Superman reboot, but they didn't, and they brought Hans Zimmer with this new score, and it was great, and it was just like, they got rid of all this, there was no songs, it was just pure score, and you saw this tone, and then it really set what Nolan was doing with treating Batman real.
Yeah.
Like everything, and and like I said, the thing that I was missing in the Burton movies was not a story about Batman. This was Batman's origin, how he learned how to train, who trained him, why he was doing what he was doing, and it just all worked so well, and it was almost like a horror film at some points, the way he was like terrorizing the people that he was going after.
Yeah, and what I love about Batman Begins also is after you watch Begins, you go back to the Burtons. That's immediately what I mentally did. And you start going, yeah, I guess that wouldn't work. And yeah, I guess that wouldn't work. Like if the Joker dropped into acid after he got shot through the neck, he'd die. He wouldn't become a supervillain.
Right. You start.
And what I loved about what they did in Batman Begins, one of my favorite aspects, is in Batman, in the original Batman, the Joker was the guy who killed his parents. He ends up dropping him off a building. He gets his revenge. He should be happy. In fact, for all intents and purposes, he doesn't have to be Batman anymore.
Right.
But in Batman Begins, he didn't get the guy who got his parents, so he can never feel fulfilled.
Love that.
And so he just does what he does and will never actually reach any level of resolve. And I think that's great. I love it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that and once everyone saw that, because there was, anytime you reboot something, people are skeptical about it. I mean, just look at all the people that are talking about Spider-Man and the reboot, and I think that was the same thing. People said, I remember having the conversation, I don't know, they should just let Batman die before this one came out, and nobody says that now. It's like these are the movies that...
Yeah, but this franchise kind of made it okay to make a movie about something that's been made recently to say, hey, we realize that this pooch got screwed. We can rehabilitate. It's like one of those Sarah McLachlan adopted dog commercials. The dog, look, it had a bad life, but we can make it better. We can rescue this.
And it also came at a time where, Mark, you had mentioned before that the X-Men movies, I mean, you could say Blade kind of, jumped in at 98, and but I mean, the one that really started like the studio craze, let's make superhero movies, was X-Men, like Mark said before, X-Men, and then those movies came and Spider-Man came out. So when Batman hit in 2005, it hit at the perfect time. Because sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I can see, I would say it like that. I think X-Men started the studio craze of bringing back all the comic book movies, but I think for the fans, Blade was the first one to kind of save it for him and go, okay, so it didn't die in the hands of Schumacher. That's good news.
Right.
So I think that's the genesis of it for me, or genesis of the reboots was Blade.
I agree.
And if you talk about the Chris Nolan movies, because now we're on to those, we're done with Burton, we're done with Schumacher, so we're going to take a call talking about the Chris Nolan movies. We have on the line, we have Brian, who's a big fan of Nolan's Batman. Is that right, Brian?
Brian, you there? I don't hear him.
I can hear you, Brian.
Oh, you can hear me? Yeah, Brian, you there?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Brian. So you're a fan of the Nolan movies?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what is it about? Did you see the other ones, the ones we talked about in the first half?
Yeah. I mentally blocked out Shoemaker movies, so I haven't seen those. But
well, what do you think it is? What do you think it is that makes the Nolan movies such a standout?
It's just the everything from the cinematography by Wally Pfister and the score, like you talked about, from Hans Zimmer, and how he had the theme for the Joker, and it wasn't like a song that was, meant to be put like a stand out from the film. It just goes with the film. And then obviously everything from the storytelling, the backstory of why Batman's doing this, and then the lack of backstory from the Joker, just the fact that he is crazy, and basically same thing with Scarecrow. I thought Cillian Murphy did a great job, and I think he's kind of underrated with that. But
and now, Brian, if I can jump in here, do you think The Dark Knight Rises is going to live up to the hype? Is going to be a great bookend for the trilogy?
I think it will be. Like you, Mark, I think Batman Begins is the best in my opinion. But I mean, I am just so excited for this, and like you guys talked about with Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, I don't think those would have happened if it weren't for Nolan's films. At least I don't think they would have been made in the dark way that they were made. And those are personally my two favorite video games. And Jeremy, I know you like them.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God! If we get into Batman video games, this is a whole other podcast. I'm still playing Tetris here. But Brian, thanks a lot for the phone call. We're probably going to do a Batman recap at some point after the movie comes out. So Brian, make sure you call us again and let us know what you thought.
Now, one of the things, Jeremy, that because we do want to cover we want to talk about our anticipation, whatever the word is.
Yeah, it's a big word. It's early in the morning.
One of the most anticipated movies of the year is going to be The Dark Knight Rises, but we'll talk about that in a second. I want to talk about the fact that the Dark Knight when it came out. Heath Ledger was another one. Everyone's going, no, you can't. The guy from Brokeback Mountain. No, you can't put him in there.
Funny? Here it is. This is exactly. I heard Heath Ledger was cast, and I was like, I looked at it. I went over. I was just visiting my mom and my stepdad, and I was like, Heath Ledger's going to be the new Joker. My stepdad just gave me a look, and I was like, yeah, Brokeback Joker. And my mom looked at me. She was making food. She puts the shit to, like, how moms kind of firmly put the silverware on the counter. She looks at me and she's like, he is an accomplished and a very good actor. He is going to do so good in that role. And,
your mom's all right, Mama John's, you're coming through.
And I kind of backed up, and I'm like, I really think she's right.
Yeah.
So my mom was really the one to slap me upside the head and be like, don't talk shit until you have prove that you're actually right about this.
That's your,
innocent until proven guilty.
That's your mom, and she's not fucking around.
That's right.
No, she is not fucking around, dude. My mom, everything I know about being able to analyze something logically in the world of entertainment came from my mom.
Yeah, and then cut to a few years later when her son is dressed up as the Joker for Halloween.
That's right.
Oh, that was wonderful.
Well, you know, and that's the thing is that, yeah, Heath Ledger he just embodied exactly what the Joker was. I mean, to me, as much as I love Batman Begins, Dark Knight is my favorite. It just did so much, and I was blown away by that movie, and you know, the use of IMAX and the way it was shot and the way it was pieced together, and the back and forth of what Batman was trying to accomplish and what the Joker just wanted to cause mayhem. I mean, to me, that was everything that I remember in the comics that the Batman and the Joker were all about. Even when Joker says, "Kill you." I don't want to kill you. You know, that whole thing.
What would I do without you? That's right.
Now personally, I'm a Cesar Romero guy myself, but I think that that's one of my favorite aspects of Joker versus Batman is that Joker doesn't really want to kill Batman because then what would he do?
Right.
It's like I don't want to give up my chief rival.
Right.
It's like the Redskins are the Cowboys. You can't do it.
Now this is my question for both you guys is that you know that the reason Nolan's so great is because he doesn't just half-ass it. He won't rush a movie. He basically tells the studio, no, I'm going to work on Inception right now. When it's time for me to come back and do the next Batman, I'm going to come back with a badass story.
Yeah.
Now the question is, do you think before, you know, unfortunately Heath Ledger died, he had an idea, him and his brother had this story mapped out that, because obviously by the end of the movie, for those who haven't seen it, spoiler, like Joker doesn't die. So they're going to put him in the asylum. Was he going to get out? Was he going to be part of the third movie helping out whoever was in the third?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think that he had a story where I don't think the Joker was going to be the main villain, but I think he was going to be an aspect of it. And I think that I think The Dark Knight Rises is not the story that he planned to do after The Dark Knight finished up.
Right.
But, I mean, I think, shoot, if for nothing else, like you said, he told the studio, like, no, I'll be back in 4 years when I can actually piece this together and make it worth doing.
And I love that he did that.
I love that about him.
Yeah, it's so great. And especially after you hit, like, because the thing is, had Inception been not successful and had been shitty, then the studios would have had like a one-up on Nolan, like, well, you better deliver now. He is a god right now because that movie was
he's there at his whim.
Yep. He's a god right now. It still worries me, some of the things, but you know, when you talk about hype,
Dark Knight Rises.
When you talk about hype for The Dark Knight Rises, it really, the genesis of a lot of this hype for this trilogy, in my opinion, is when Heath Ledger died, is because that elevated everything around The Dark Knight to a new level, because now it was this incredible performance, and the guy died. It's almost like, you know, you're a Doors fan. It's like the part of the mystique about them is that Jim Morrison's no longer around.
Right.
So now you have The Dark Knight Rises coming out, and the hype is unreal for this movie. What worries me about The Dark Knight Rises is there's so many villains. Well, yeah. Where are all these people going? Why is Catwoman in it? How is this going to work? How are they all going to tie together?
Jerry, relax.
I'm nervous.
Hey, there's so many villains. I don't know what to do.
I like to say that. I mean, in The Dark Knight, Ra's al Ghul and the Scarecrow were in it.
Right.
There were two villains in that one. There were two villains in the new one.
Listen, I agree with you, Jeremy. I think, again, this is I'll be one of those fanboys where I'm saying trust in Nolan, and I think but the question is, and Jeff, our producer, brought this up before we started the broadcasting today, and he said he's a big Batman fan, and one of his concerns was that in the comic books, Bane is humongous. He's like, 7, 8 feet tall or something. He's like incredible.
He's enormous,
He's like the Incredible Hulk. He's like, give him the serum and everything too. And the question from a lot of the fans is Bane going to get the serum? Personally, I don't think he's going to. I think there's going to be some other thing that happens too, because Nolan kind of strays away from like the fantasy type stuff and goes more in the real. But I am not worried about Bane. He's the last one I'm worried about. The muffled voice, we'll get over it. Tom Hardy brings such a intensity and like violence to every one of his villains. Even in Warrior, when he wasn't a villain, he brings an intensity. I think he's going to be one of the best villains, and I'll say it, since Darth Vader.
Yeah, and he's got a good hulking presence to him. He's like 5'2", so he's not exactly George Mirasan, but he looked great as Bane for the 6 minutes that I saw.
What do you think, Jeremy? Are you a Bane fan so far?
I like Bane. This is my thing. I think he's going to be a great villain. My question is, when I walk out of the theater, am I going to think to myself, he was a great villain, but was he Bane? You know, like, should he have been a guy named Bob, who also did everything, and you know what I mean?
Well, yeah. Right, coming from someone...
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, coming from somebody who knows like the Batman world and Bane so well, I'm very curious to see how like someone like you, because isn't he a pretty big presence in the video games as well?
Oh yeah, he's well. First of all, Tom Hardy is a different nationality than what Bane is.
Right.
But that doesn't bother me. I mean, people have griped about that. I'm like, yeah, but you know, they made the Kingpin African American in Daredevil. I'm not saying that the movie's going to be like Daredevil.
Right. I know what you mean.
I don't care about nationality as long as the person can.
If it delivers,
I really don't give a shit.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be fantastic. I think it's going to be a trilogy. Here's a question that I have for all three of you guys. What is going to be the fate of Batman? Is he going to get his back broken? Is he going to die? Is Joseph Gordon-Levitt going to take over as the new Batman because of that whole cop thing that happens in the comics? What do you think, if you were to predict the ending? Jeremy, what do you think?
I think Batman's going to get his back broken, but that's where it's going to end. I don't think he's going to rehabilitate it. I think Bane's going to break him, and it's going to be one of those things where he's just going to have to live with the fact that no good deed goes unpunished. He tried to fix the city, and now he's just going to kind of pay for it in a wheelchair.
I think he's going to have his back severely injured. I think we're looking at a fracture of the L4, of the L5. I don't see a total break. I don't think he's going to die, and I think Alfred takes over as the city vigilante.
I don't think that's going to happen at all. But all right, so here's what we're going to do to kind of wind down here. We're going to take a couple more phone calls. We're also going to answer some questions on Twitter. But let's do one more phone call. Who do we got?
Let's get to Andrew, who's been holding a while. Andrew, thanks for hanging in, buddy. Excited about these the Dark Knight Rises coming out?
Extremely. And I know we're talking about The Dark Knight, but I actually had a question for you guys.
What do you got?
So for like all of you guys, who is your guys' favorite Joker actor of all time?
The favorite Joker actor of all time. Thank you for the call, Andrew. Thanks for hanging on for so long. Favorite Joker actor of all time. You know, I love Nicholson. Cesar Romero's great. You got to go Heath Ledger.
You got to go Ledger.
Yeah, it's Ledger. He was the embodiment of the Joker.
Yeah.
Everything about the Joker in any graphic novel or comic book you ever loved, Heath Ledger embodied perfectly.
Yes, and just like the Joker, he came out of left field. You never saw him coming.
Yeah, no one knows the origin. When he was like, you want to know how I got these scars? I was like, all right, that's kind of a forced story about his scars. And in the next story, he has a completely different story about how he got his scars. And it reminded me of the Killing Joke when he said, when I remember my past one way, it's one
exactly.
way.
Nicholson would hate this comparison, but Nicholson is the Los Angeles Clippers to Heath Ledger's Los Angeles Lakers when you're talking about the Joker.
Let's answer one question on Twitter here. We have a question that came in from at Senor Nerd. How much money does The Dark Knight Rises make in the box office?
Oh, jeez. Well, if you've ever watched the Schmoes Know Box Office Sunday show, I'm not bad at predicting overall box office. I just don't really get the order right every week. I think, is it going to be the biggest moneymaker of all time? It's that kind of question.
Of all time?
When you talk about it.
Yeah, all time, you got to break the $2.5 billion that Avatar broke. That was also 3D. I don't think so, but I think it will break $1 billion.
Yeah, I think because it's big and Batman's huge internationally. I think we're getting to about $900 million total.
What's the opening weekend haul we're looking at? Are we going to break 150?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
For the opening weekend, yeah.
Gonna break 150
because you got it in IMAX, and people know that Nolan has like an hour of footage full of IMAX, which that's going to be a lot of people in the theater. All right, go ahead, Mark.
All right, we got one more phone call we're going to take today, and it is Patrick, who's been hanging on for a while. Patrick, you excited about these Batman movies?
Oh boy. Oh boy.
What do you got? So Patrick, what are you looking forward to the most in The Dark Knight Rises?
Well, seeing Joel Schumacher do such a good job, I just don't know no one can top it.
Tough to follow. Tough act to follow.
Yep.
Well, I think like the hardest part that's going to be for The Dark Knight Rises is like every like Christopher Nolan Batman movie, like he had to like overcome some hype or like overcome something. Like Batman Begins, it had to overcome Batman and Robin, which I could have gone out to the backyard and shot a Batman movie and overcome it.
Agreed.
The Dark Knight, it had Heath Ledger and that hype behind him and just surprised everybody. And I think the hype that the Dark Knight Rises has to overcome is the movie itself. Can it like surpass The Dark Knight and be more epic in that way?
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things where I think people might make that mistake is, I'm going to compare Dark Knight Rises to The Dark Knight. Really, Batman Begins and The Dark Knight are really different movies. They're such different tones that you can't really compare one to the other. I think The Dark Knight Rises is going to be the same aspect. I don't think you can really compare one to the other two because they're so different in terms of the trilogy. So, yeah, I agree that people are going to make that mistake.
Well, Patrick, thank you so much for the phone call, buddy, and we hope you look forward to it. We hope you get to see The Dark Knight Rises opening weekend, and again, give us a call back, because I'm sure we're going to do another podcast about Batman after the movie comes out.
One more thing, we on our Facebook page at Schmoes Know, we did we asked a question about what you guys were looking forward to and some other common facts you wanted to put. Logan Gray puts that the third trailer for The Dark Knight will be attached to the Avengers to let everybody know. So I know a lot of people are going to be excited about that. Mark, this is where the press screenings do not come in handy.
Yeah, we don't get any of the trailers. Sometimes they even cut off the back, the end credit scenes at press screening trailers. But if you have a final thought, Jeremy, about the Dark Knight Rises and the hype surrounding it, the excitement, we are going into this movie. What's your overall theme?
My overall, I really, as long as I keep things in perspective, I don't think I'm going to be disappointed whatsoever. I think going back to what Kristian said about Bane, do I think Tom Hardy's going to be a good Bane? I think, like the Joker, he's going to personally and in his emotional structure, and he's going to be the character, just like Heath Ledger was the Joker. And the only gripe that ever came from Heath Ledger's Joker was, his coat wasn't purple enough.
Right.
He looked like he just rolled out of a dumpster.
Right.
So the physical look of the character, Bane, Tom Hardy's Bane, isn't his biggest Bane, but I think when he does what he does, he acts how he acts, he thinks how he thinks, I think you're going to look at him and go, you know what, that is Bane. He's not as big as Bane, but that really doesn't matter. That comes second to the acting talent and the embodiment of the character itself.
Well, after that story you told, I really would like to know more what your mom thinks about Tom Hardy playing Bane.
Well, absolutely.
I'm going to ask her, I'm going to be like, Mom, do you think young Jean-Luc Picard's clone from Star Trek Nemesis can really
That's a great point. Well, look, this is we could talk about Batman forever, no pun intended. But now the thing is, this is the end of it. It's the Schmoes Know podcast. We'd like to thank the great Jeremy Jahns for coming on. You can check him out at youtube.com/Jeremy Jahns. You check us out at youtube.com/Schmoes Know, at Schmoes Know for Twitter, and /Schmoes Know at Facebook.
Coming up next is the Heidi and Frank Show on the Toad Hop Network. Thank you guys for listening. We will be here next week, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Avengers.
See you then.